So I want to welcome everybody to today's VMUG webinar. It's our honor to have an opportunity to share some of our thoughts with you around affordable disaster recovery. As you can see from my background, not only am I a serial tech entrepreneur, but I've been a professor for over 20 years, both at MIT and now at the Holt International Business School. And it's really with that hat on that I take on today's role. We understand that you, the global VMUG community, care deeply about getting deeply technical content to help you perform your jobs better, and that's exactly what we're committed to doing. We're proud to have been the most highly ranked VMUG webinar last year globally, 2017, specifically on a webinar around application benchmarking and performance, and we'd encourage you to go to the Reduxio website to watch that, which is archived, and many others. So if we go to the next slide, our agenda is quite simple. I'm going to just take literally 5 minutes to provide a little bit of context on Reduxio, and it's really more about the validation we've received in the market to date. We're then going to hear from the first of our two speakers. Both of them are very technical and very experienced. Ronan, who is a colleague of mine at Reduxio, he's our lead technical marketing engineer, will be sharing his insights around how to achieve near zero RTO and RPO. We'll take roughly 15 minutes to do so. And then I will moderate a fireside chat with Eric Reinhold. Eric has over 10 years of experience running IT organizations. He's currently the system manager at Gordon College. And we'll probably spend about 20 to 25 minutes with Eric, walking through his infrastructure, the challenges, how he's faced those challenges, and we'll preserve the last 10 minutes for what we hope would be a very interactive Q&A session. You'll also note there's a number of handouts that we've made available to you that will further reinforce some of the content. So we'll go to the next slide. There really are two unique components to Reduxio's architecture, which will become far more clear over the next hour. The Version 1 of Reduxio created a very unique approach which obviated the need for snapshots. And the TimeOS operating system, storage operating system, is something that we've gotten quite a bit of notoriety around. And in many ways, it serves as a time machine for your data, creating a level of abstraction for your data wherever it may be, giving you the opportunity to access that data and bring it back with near zero RPO and RTO. Now, it's much more important to share with you what the industry has said about us. And so I imagine most of you recognize all of these names. These are top-tier industry analysts, all of whom we have spent quite a bit of time briefing, demoing to. They've also all spoken to some of our customers. And you'll see a very consistent message from all of them. Forrester describing us as one of three vendors disrupting the integrated secondary storage market, where we've created a single platform to manage both primary and secondary storage along with data protection. Gartner has listed us as a company providing continuous data protection in two of its hype cycles, both storage and business continuity. Frost & Sullivan gave us the North American Technology Innovation Award for 2017. And IDC talks about the fact that we will generally eliminate the need for separate purpose-built backup, reducing cost and complexity. And that certainly feeds into the message you're going to get from Ronan about DR without breaking the bank. Next, please. We've also been recognized by a number of leading industry journals as a startup of the year or for product of the year, whether it be Network World, Search Storage, Tech Target, and Storage Magazine. But by far the most important input that we get from the market in terms of validating who we are and what we bring to the market is from our customers. We've now got well over 225 customers around the world across a broad range of industries, from primary, secondary, and higher education to state and local government, to manufacturing, to high tech, to professional services, to biotech, and a wide range of other companies with a significant presence, not just in North America, but across most of Central and Europe, as well as in Israel. And these are just a handful of quotes that come from some of our customers. I would recommend, if you're interested, to go to the Reduxio website And under the drop-down message or nav point for customers, take a look at the many videos, case studies, press releases, articles that our customers have contributed to. Or if you're also familiar with a relatively new peer-reviewed IT website called IT Central Station, you'll see the IT Central Station. Just go to itcentralstation.com. It's what I call Yelp for geeks. It allows IT professionals to post independent reviews about their experiences with the vendors they are working with. There are now 16 independent Reduxio user reviews on IT Central Station. We have the highest rating of any storage company in the world. We have a 9.85 rating across all of our customers to date. So that is something that I think will give you an indication of how customers, in addition to Eric, who you'll be hearing from shortly, have experienced Reduxio. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. So we're now going to transition to the technical part of our discussion. First speaker today is my colleague, Ronan. Ronan is based in Tel Aviv, Israel. He's got over 20 years of professional experience, including 13 in the backup and storage industry. Spent many of his years in that capacity as a solution engineer for IBM and their storage software business units. And he now leads our technical marketing efforts on solution architecture and documentation. So Ronan, I'm going to hand it over to you and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Hi, everyone. My name is Ronan, and I'm going to jump right to the subject. And I'm going to talk about actually RPO and RTO. And those terms that I'm sure everybody are familiar with, it's common, but I think that not everybody really understand the capabilities around backup solutions today, what is available, and how to measure those things, and actually how to set them. So let's start just very briefly about what the definitions are. RPO is actually the recovery point objective, and it actually focuses on data and your company's loss tolerance of the data. RTO is recovery time objective, and that's actually the target time to recover the data in case of disaster. So those are basic definitions. And I actually used to work with a lot of big customers, enterprise, with thousands of VMs or just dozens of VMs, so for all sizes. And what I found is that although the technology, and today backup solutions actually give you the technology to create multiple backups during the day, still most of the customers are doing a backup only once a day, except for critical applications. And usually it's just because the backup products are not good enough. They still affect the production environment, and the backup administrators don't feel comfortable using them multiple times a day because they're afraid of impacting the environment. The other thing, of course, is if you want to have very good RPO and RTO, it costs a lot of money usually. And we'll talk about it later. So RPO, that's actually your data loss. This is the time that passes from your last backup until you have this oops moment that the data got corrupted. This data, you cannot recover it usually because you don't have any copy of that. And you can never actually recreate it exactly the same because it's a code of, you're writing code, if it's POs that you got in. If you lost the data, that's data that you cannot recreate. So that's a real data loss, and that's your RPO. RTO is actually the recovery time. How long does it take you to recover the data not to recover the data, to get your operations up and running from that oops moment until now, actually, until your data is available again. And those two together actually combine for the total downtime of the business. Now, it is very, very important to understand that both RPO and RTO are actually things that the business should decide on. The technology shouldn't affect what the RPO is or what the RTO is. So, and again, from my experience, most cases is that the technology actually drives both of them, which is bad, and it's bad for business. A quick example here, if you have an RTO of 24 hours and an RPO of 24 hours, let's say that you had an incident, a system failure, let's say on Wednesday at noon. This means that you actually need to go back after 24 hours and recover data from Tuesday, and it will take you 24 hours, additional hours to recover it, which means that you will be up and running again only on Thursday noon with the data of Tuesday noon. So you lost actually 48 hours of business. So that's your total downtime. A quick way to calculate the RPO cost is actually, you need to multiply the number of people that will be affected by an outage, their salary per hour, and add to that the revenue that you're losing per hour, and that's your RPO, basically. That's the cost of your RPO per hour. So if you have, for example, 50 employees, average salary of $100 per hour, and the business is making about $1,000 in revenue, the cost per hour is 50 times 100, $5,000 plus 1,000, that's $6,000 per hour. If you have an RTO of 6 hours, for example, that's 4 backups per day. 6 hours times 6,000, you're talking about $36,000. And that's just, the cost for the business. You might, if those might be POs, you might have lost those POs to other companies. This cost can be much, much higher. RTO is similar calculation, basically. It's just how much time does it take you to recover the data. If you're talking about snapshots, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes, recovery is usually quite fast. If you need to retrieve it from slower media, you need to add more hours to the cost here. Let's talk about backup and disaster recovery. So it is important to understand that backup is not disaster recovery. Backup actually focuses on keeping your data safe. If something happens, I can go back and retrieve the data. Something happened to my logical corruption or something, I can just go back, get it from disk, from tape, wherever. And it focuses on the RPO and the retention. So you can say, I want to create a backup once a day, 4 times a day, whatever it is, and we want to keep a week of the data. That's backup. Disaster recovery also focuses on recovering the data in case the production system is unavailable. Usually, disaster recovery requires additional hardware that can sustain the workload, and this is important. There are a lot of solutions out there, especially for VMware, that allows you to recover a VM directly from the backup software. What those solutions do is actually spin up a VM on the backup server and then vMotion the VM back. And you have your downtime is minimal, of course, and you have the machine up and running again. Disaster recovery focuses in case you lost the entire production environment. this means that your entire ESX farm or cluster is down. Now the question is, can that solution that allows to recover a single VM, spin it up and vMotion it, can it actually handle all the IOs and all the compute that is required in that scenario in case of a real disaster? So that's something to keep in mind. We're talking about disaster recovery. And of course, disaster recovery focus on low RPO and low RTO. So how fast can I actually replicate the data mostly to another site, and how fast can I actually get it up and running in case of a disaster? Now, one more thing to remember, not backup and not disaster recovery are actually high availability. High availability is something completely different, and it actually helps you to keep your applications available all the time. Even in case of disaster, you lost your production, your main environment. High availability means you have no downtime at all. Your application are still serving data, your users. Now, this is a strange graph actually, and what it shows is that the lower RPO you want and the lower RTO you want, the cost for that is actually greater. So, and that's because you need more components for that solution usually, and we'll talk about those components. But this is really the case. I mean, if you have 24 hours RPO and RTO, as I said earlier, it actually means that you're going to lose 48 hours of data. You can probably go with a cheaper solution, I would say. The less RTO and less RPO that is required, and again, that should be a business decision of what to set there and how to set it, the more cost, that the cost is going to be much higher. And of course, if you are like Dilbert in this solution, if you have a recovery plan, it's very, very cheap. I hope you have a better one. So let's talk about what affects RPO. The first thing to have is actually the change rate of the data that you're backing up. So especially with VMware, the change rate, it's easy to capture what changed, but the more data that has changed within the backups, the more data you need to actually move on your network and talk about it to your backup server or to your DR site. The next thing, of course, is the backup frequency. And again, if you're doing a once-a-day backup, the amount of data that will be backed up every day is going to be higher than if you do it every 6 hours. Backup technology. VMware, we have a lot of backup solutions now that use change block tracking. So the change rate there is about 1 to 3% per day. It saves a lot of time on the backup. If you're not using that, if your backup software doesn't support that, I definitely recommend something that can do that, because you are doing much bigger backups and take you just longer time. I was working with a customer at the time that had over 8,000 VMs. It still took them about 6 to 8 hours to back up all those VMs with CBT. So people are still very careful about backup windows and how soon those backups should complete so they will not affect the production environment. The other thing about the backup technology, we're also talking about DR here. So there are solutions that will know how to send only those changes to the DR side, and of course can send on the next thing that I'm going to talk about. That's the network. Local network, usually you have either fiber channel or 10 gig, iSCSI. So backup locally are usually fast. If we're talking about disaster recovery, and now we need to actually transfer all this data to another site, network is definitely something critical that you need to make sure that it supports the need. And again, it will depend on how often you back up the data, how much data is being backed up, and if you have any specific transfer window for that backup. Last thing is actually your backup target. So most solutions today support some kind of disk backup. A lot of customers are still using tape, especially for archiving data, and it's still a very valid solution for many customers to use as an off-site backup. If they're not using replication, that's their actually archive and DR solution. Keep in mind, restoring from disk, backing up to disk is usually faster. Backing up to tape, it's not always valid, especially with CBT, when you want to back up only specific blocks. It's more relevant when doing a full backup of data, but recovery is affected by that a lot. And that takes us actually to the next slide, which is what affects the RTO. And the first thing is actually the amount of data you need to recover. You lost your entire site, now you need to recover whether it's a 10 terabyte, 100 terabyte, or more. It depends on the size of the business, of course. So the amount of data that you need to recover, I think, is the number one factor that affects the RTO. Recovery capabilities are also very important, especially solutions that do support CBT recovery, which means to recover only blocks since the failure. From between the last good backup, between current state and last good backup. So it just shortens the time it takes you to do the recovery. And network, same thing, whether it's local or over the WAN. And as I said earlier, the backup target also affects everything. Sorry, especially if it's coming from tape. So what do we as customer want from a backup solution? We want, of course, zero RPO and zero RTO. We want it to be cost effective, and we want it to be flexible. If you remember the diagram I showed you earlier, the graph, usually zero RTO and zero RPO will cost you a lot of money. What do we have with current backup solutions? We're talking about snapshots, and I'm talking about hardware snapshots here. Now, they are good, very good, by the way, for RTO and RPO. They're integrated into the hardware, but they are inefficient, and usually they're still scheduled. So you will still do them once a day, once every 4 hours, 6 hours, and so on. Keep in mind that snapshots are not new. Snapshots have been around for about 25 to 30 years. So though that's almost the top of the line for many vendors, many hardware vendors mainly, as the way to achieve better RPO and RTO, it is an old technology. Backup solutions usually provide us with poor RPO and RTO. Usually it's once a day backup. It is cheap to implement, but it is complex, and the cost of downtime might be very, very high, again, because of the RPO and RTO. And hardware replication provide usually very good RPO and RTO. They are integrated into the array, but they are usually expensive. and very inflexible. There are application solutions that are coming as software only from backup vendors that are more integrated into VMware, but they are still usually very expensive. So why is Reduxio different? We provide actually storage array that has a lot of those capabilities built into the storage. So you don't need those additional solutions around them. The storage itself, Reduxio storage, provides 1 second RPO and an instant application recovery. We call it backdating. We have a built-in replication engine, basically, and we converge primary and secondary storage to allow you to move data to another site and actually instantiate that data either locally or anywhere else. And that's near zero RTO from anywhere for your DR cases. And we also have a capability called no migrate that allows you to do an instant application and data migration between third-party storage to Reduxio or between Reduxio arrays. How do you verify your RPO and RTO? So I can tell you that a personal story that I had is about, 3-4 months ago, my wife's phone was giving us some hard time, and we had an issue with that. I had to reset it, and before I reset it, I wanted to back up an application, IM application, WhatsApp application, if you're familiar with that, and I want to back up this database locally. Of course, the phone was about to die, so I just copied the data to my laptop, reset the phone, brought it up, copied the data back, tried to copy it, actually install the application. It asked me, do I have a backup? I said yes. Tried to recover the database. And of course, it says the database is corrupted. We cannot use it. I actually had to start from scratch. My wife didn't like me too much that day. And the funny thing is that I had the same issue last week, but this time I did several backups, just one after the other, just to make sure that they have the data there. And that's actually the real secret about verifying your RPO and RTO. You have to test, and test again to make sure your backup is available, and more importantly is that you can actually recover the data and it is still within the tolerance of the business as far as how long can it be the downtime of the business. Thank you very much. And with that, Mike, do you want to introduce Eric?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ronan, for that. And by the way, we will certainly have plenty of time for questions for both Ronan and Eric. So we're going to now transition to a moderated fireside chat. And it's Reduxio's honor and pleasure to have with us today Eric Reinhold. Eric is the system manager at Gordon College. I've had a chance to spend time with Eric on numerous occasions. He's a very experienced systems administrator, very much a person in the vanguard about making sure that he's adopting the newest technologies, the most innovative approaches. He's actually got a very sophisticated infrastructure, which he's going to describe in a second, both across virtual servers as well as VDI implementations in his current environment. So let's go on to the next slide, and we'll land on that and keep that one for the duration. So Eric, thanks. I know that we're both getting snowed in today here in Massachusetts. Thank you for taking the time to join us. It would be great if you could just take a few minutes to provide some context on Gordon College, its history, and how you think about the world.
Okay, Gordon College, we were founded in 1889 under the name Boston Missionary Training School. It's named for its founder, Reverend Dr. Adoniram Judson Gordon, who's the pastor of Boston Clarendon Street Church and a prominent clergyman of the 1800s. It's a very similar start to the Harvard School. Gordon College is one of the nation's premier Christian colleges and located just north of Boston. We offer students extraordinary access to leading-edge opportunities for intellectual, professional, and leadership development to address the increasingly complex challenges in our global society. Gordon stands apart from other outstanding institutions in New England by combining an exceptional education with an informed Christian faith. The short version of that would be we love Jesus and academics.
All right, thank you. And I will attest, one of my next door neighbors went to Gordon College. He's now a professional lacrosse player and also a very successful executive in the tech space. So at least I've got one proof point right next door. So Gordon, Eric, let's just jump in right to the technical component. So please, if you would, describe your existing IT infrastructure in some level of detail so our audience members can really appreciate what you're managing today.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great presentation because I am that guy sitting in the hot seat when there's an oops moment and I have RPO and RTO objectives to hit. So let me go ahead and explain my infrastructure. So we have 3 4-node clusters of Hyper-V hypervisors, and then we have 1 4-node cluster of VMware. This is spread across 2 data centers. Each has 1 Reduxio SAN, which we use for production storage, and 1 Microsoft SAN of JBODs and disk enclosures that we use for more of an archive tier of storage. Reduxio is over iSCSI, so we have an iSCSI 10 gig Ethernet with 2 fabrics. This slide's good for some of that, showing some of our infrastructure as well. Absolutely.
Okay, so as we think about, as you said, you're in the hot seat every day. And being in the hot seat means that you are taking on challenges all day, every day. What are some of the biggest data storage and data management challenges that you have faced, and what are you actually doing to prepare and manage those today?
Yeah, absolutely. One of them, which I really appreciate highlighted in this slide deck, is just the ease of management. So if I want to go on a vacation, or if we need multiple people to handle any given fire or work on a recovery, Reduxio both support and the management, the interface is very simple and streamlined. So that helps us to be able to do our recoveries quickly and efficiently. Another one, we just had a need for really speed and IOPS. Our business, the hybrid solution that Reduxio does, and the way that it handles the storage, mentioned multiple times in this slide deck, which kind of attests to, is the ability for Reduxio to keep the price point without breaking the bank, essentially. So we were able to get an incredible amount of speed and IOPS for us to deploy new systems. Which was a big need for us. We were at the point where we actually couldn't deploy new applications and new servers because there's such a high degree of latency that we really couldn't add to that because it would be slowing everything down.
That's great. And Eric, I know before our webinar, we talked about the fact that you've got dozens of applications. So can you describe sort of maybe the nature of some of these applications that you've had to be able to manage and make sure that you've got enough IOPS capacity for?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of our stuff is in Microsoft SQL and other databases. A lot of our business being a college is the management of students, their classes, their grades. We're very interested in student health and how they're doing, and we want them to be positioned to succeed as well as possible. So we have a lot of databases that we're using to analyze our students and help them to succeed. Various web apps to help them attend various events on and off campus. Exchange, then we have our whole sort of staff side of the house, which would be Exchange and calendars.
Yeah.
HR databases and those sorts of things. A lot of
Right.
databases.
And clearly, you were a very big VMware shop, and I realized that, you were running VMware servers and VMware VDI, but of course Microsoft has made a pretty significant decision to provide a lot of their capability for free to the academic environment, which has led to a pretty significant transition for you, right? And I imagine you're sort of still in the midst of that right now.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that was like and where maybe Reduxio was able to support that transition?
Yeah. So just like you were saying, Mike, yeah, the Microsoft's just made a very significant push to give things pretty much at no cost to colleges and universities. So so we did start to move a lot of our workloads over to there, and some of what's really helped with that is just, again, that extra capacity that we've had to be able to. So what I did, which I would encourage people to do, is I heard about Reduxio, and some of it honestly just sounded like too good to be true. Being a little bit skeptical, I was like, all right, well, I got to try this out. I was reached out to do a proof of concept, and they had a very customer friendly proof of concept I was going to be able to do. So I was able to deploy the Reduxio, and that was a great tool in order to be able to put some workloads on the Reduxio, test it out, and have this storage pool that was fast, that I could do recovery from as I'm doing the migration. So that's kind of a way that really helped me out in that task.
That's great. And let me just shift slightly. I know we talked now about data storage and management. How about what are the key data protection issues that are of most interest and maybe most threatening to you and to the college?
Yeah, absolutely. So being a college, we have a global market. So we have students coming from all over the world. And a disadvantage with that is we have to then open up our websites, our email systems, our firewalls to the big bad world of the entire internet. So we're always afraid of ransomware, phishing attacks. Ransomware is a big one. Even in this last year or two, just the amount of outbreaks, the ability for people to download and sort of roll and create their own ransomware. It's like ransomware as a service is now a thing. And when we're talking about the RPO and the RTO, if my data, my servers are encrypted, I'm in that group of people that our backups are about once a day. So if we're looking at a 24-hour RPO and then trying to do an RTO of recovering 10 to 30 terabytes of data that could be encrypted, that would just be significantly expensive and obviously very unpleasant for me as the systems manager. So the ability I like the slideshow to be able to do, it's really like minutes and seconds of an RPO for having that recovery point of any second. And then the RTO, like Reduxio just spins that storage up almost instantly. You don't even walk away from your desk. You spin it up and it's there. And then being able to start restoring in large data store volumes at a time, getting things back online and having the speed to boot them up so you're not creating any kind of boot storm. It helps me sleep at night. It's probably a good way to put it.
Okay, no, that's great. And listen, I know we had an opportunity to hear from Ronan. What were your key takeaways from what Ronan shared with the audience today? What were some of the things that you want to reinforce?
Yeah, there was two big takeaways for me. One of them I did prior to this webinar, which was just to calculate my own business's RTO and RPO downtime expense. So I did that little calculation of taking my staff and multiplying it by a sort of average hourly salary. It's kind of scary just to know. It's weighty to know that my efforts during that time in the event of an outage are that there's that much financial financial implications riding on being able to get things back online. But I think it's good to do. It's good to know that number so that you can plan and budget and talk to the relevant people in your businesses accordingly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was just like you said in that slide about practicing. Even this week, there's like practicing recoveries, practicing in the case of DR. That's been a big objective for me this year. Because even if you have the tool, in this case, Reduxio, that knows how to do it and has the ability to do it, and I can call support, and they're great. For me to actually know hands-on of practice and run through a couple scenarios, you just learn so much. Like that slide was really good about where it showed I hit 4 of my 5 checks, and then I tried it again. I got 4 or 5, and then third time around, you figured out all the kinks. So that's a really good takeaway.
All right, no, that's great. And listen, I'm going to ask you one last question for now, then open it up to the audience. And depending on how many questions we get, I'll continue to go through the question list. But what was maybe the biggest components that were missing for you in your data storage management protection infrastructure before bringing Reduxio on? What gaps did Reduxio help you to fill out?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that was giving the most emphasis internally, what I mean is by approved budget from corporate, was the speed, like the ability to not deploy new applications and new servers. The whole business was just feeling the pain point of that. And the way that Reduxio handles storage with the SSDs and a cache of 256 gigabytes of RAM and not having to write down duplicate data blocks, it's very fast. We actually went from, there's various ways to calculate IOPS, but at a minimum, we quadrupled the amount of IOPS that we could deploy to. At a maximum, it's probably like 10 to 20 times. I was able to run a test and get 100,000 IOPS when we used to be at 5,000 was our max. And our budget didn't change. That was clear in the project, but to be able to get 10 to 20 times more speed was tremendous. We were running a Java web interface before. I don't know that many people still like Java, but so Java would update and our management would break, and you don't want to be fussing to fix Java when you have a storage pinch and you're trying to get in there. So having an HTML5 management interface that is just easily accessible and anyone on the team feels comfortable hopping into is big. And then just like this presentation, the RTO and the RPO, we run Veeam as our other layer of backups. But to have this and the ability to restore to any second, any minute, especially globally, and be able to restore so quickly in the case of something like ransomware, those would probably be 3 big ones that jump to mind right away.
That's great, Eric. Okay, and Eric, listen, we're gonna transition now. I'm gonna open this up for questions. So if you do have questions, please bring them to our attention through the chat window. Now, who from the Reduxio team will be sort of managing and monitoring the questions coming in?
Hi, Mike. I'll read the questions out loud. I already have them here.
Great. Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. So the first question is addressed to Ronan. It's, did Reduxio customers actually observe an RPO of 1 second?
Yeah, so what Reduxio does is actually similar to continuous data protection. Every write that goes into the system is actually timestamped, and this allows us actually to recover any data back to a specific second that is required by the user. We had multiple users that actually used it. There is, if you go on our website, you can actually hear a testimonial of a police station that they were attacked by ransomware several times, and by moving to Reduxio, instead of taking them hours or days to recover, they can just now select a specific point in time, and they're up and running within 30 minutes or less. So definitely helps customer to go back to any second time just before the corruption, the ransomware, or anything else happen to the data, or even if they just want to take some point in time and use it for dev and test to analyze what happened just before something went wrong with the product. It's also been used by the customers, and really you can select any second time to do that.
Ronan, let me just jump in here and say that if anyone is interested in learning more, the name of the police department is the Barnstable Police Department. They are based in Hyannis, Massachusetts. Fairly large police department, 200 plus sworn officers. And you'll see a video on our website under customers. You'll see a case study. You'll see a lot of news articles. So there's a lot of detail that's been published because it's the rare happy ending to a ransom attack. Okay, y'all, next question, please.
Sure. This one is for Gordon College. Eric, how long did you test Reduxio during the POC, and what other SANs were you evaluating?
Yeah, absolutely. We were evaluating Compellant. We were evaluating Storage Spaces Direct. We were evaluating Nimble. And there was one or two other ones that are escaping me. We evaluated it for about, it was like 4 to 6 months. It was a very long time. So that worked out. Again, for us, the customer proof of concept was just so customer friendly and really won me over to the Reduxio platform.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'll keep going.
The next one is for Ronan. It's Reduxio backup software. Can you explain a little bit more about your flash storage systems?
Okay, so yeah, I think it's actually two questions. So Reduxio is not a backup software. Reduxio is actually a storage array that is converge primary and secondary capabilities, because it has this recording, this timestamp capability for the data. It actually allows you to now get back a copy of the data from any point in time. So it is in a way some kind of backup, continuous data protection backup for your applications. And since you can also use the no store capability to replicate the data to a secondary site, it also give you disaster recovery capabilities. So that's where the primary and secondary capabilities are converged. On top of that, of course, you can just clone in data, present it to multiple servers, and there's no dependencies between those clones. So a storage, I would say, that gives you a lot of capabilities on top of just a backup solution. Reduxio itself is a hybrid solution storage, and it provides you flash performance, but it's also cost efficient because it's hybrid, and it's all patented under the PineOS operating system that is on the storage. So again, if you want to hear more about that, you can contact us to the website or the local team, and we'll be happy to expand and explain more about the capabilities of Reduxio.
Thank you. Next question is, what's the overhead on performance from the Reduxio backups?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes. What's the overhead on performance from the Reduxio backups?
Okay, so there is no overhead, actually, because everything is done within the storage. Unlike a storage software, usually that require special agents and stuff like that in order to push the data, we do everything within the storage. We understand the rights that are going to the storage, and that's where we're more efficient than other storage. I mean, if you think about continuous data protection solutions. We don't see a lot of them out there anymore, and my guess is because of the overhead of splitting all the writes that are going into the array and pushing it to another array, synchronous or asynchronous. And with Reduxio, because we do everything within the box, there's no overhead for that.
Thank you. The last question is addressed to Eric. Eric, have you used the restore function for test dev environments?
Yes, that's actually a great use case for it, is test and dev, because you have so many things that you want to spin up quickly. If you break something, you're doing a lot of fast changes. One thing I should mention about the restores is you want to, this may be a no-brainer, but you want to keep some amount of free capacity in your Reduxio, so that if you want to spin up a bunch of clones and try some different things, you can do that. So that comes back to the testing, your disaster recovery. But yeah, test and development servers are great on Reduxio just because you can spin up so many so quickly. You can duplicate them. You can restore back to a certain second, all those sorts of things. It's a very good use case for that.
All right, so it sounds like that was the last question, Neil? All right. So let me formally wrap this up. I want to thank both Ronan and especially our customer Eric for taking time this morning to share their insights with you. As I mentioned before, we do archive all of these webinars on our website. Invite you to come and look at some of the different topics. There's been a lot on data security. There's been a lot on application performance, and of course today, disaster recovery. You'll note again that there's a number of handouts that are available here, including the Gordon College case study, a data sheet on data protection, and of course, other tools like our total cost of ownership tool. Also encourage you to take a look at some of the industry analyst reports that have been written about us as well from Forrester, IDC, Gartner, and Frost & Sullivan. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon on another VMUG webinar. This is Mike Grandinetti, Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer for Reduxio, signing off. Thank you.